We've got 4 new products from Garmin Tracking. The new handhelds are the Alpha 300 and the Alpha 300i. The exact same unit, except the I has the inReach capability. The Alpha 300 has better battery life, it has a better screen, it has a better charging system, it has the ability to use Wi-Fi to update the handheld and the collars, it is compatible with Garmin's Outdoor Maps Plus subscription service maps. It also has a new menu interface that is easier to use. As far as collars go, we have 2 new tracking collars. The T20, a tracking-only collar. Just like previous generations, it has the orange GPS antenna with an orange top on here that identifies that it is a tracking-only collar. And then we have the TT25, a track and train collar. We have several new features in these new collars, the first one being dynamic update. And what this does is it stretches out the battery life, giving you up to about 68 hours of battery life in a single charge. We have 7 multicolor options for your running lights. We have replaceable flex bands. We have a new status indicator that changes colors depending on what the status is of your collar. We have one size fits most. It's not too big for your small dogs and not too small for your big dogs. And finally, we have the ability to update collars via Wi-Fi. All right, let's talk about the handheld features of the Alpha 300. The Alpha 300 is a GPS track and train system. Alpha 300 will track up to 20 dogs or handhelds. You have 2 different ways to see the information on the screen. There's a compass screen, which will show your dog's direction and distance and what the dog is doing, whether it's treed or on point. We then have a map screen, which the map screen will show the trail that your dog has run. You have a couple of different options as far as whether or not that's a topo map or a satellite imagery map. The fastest update rate is 2.5 seconds. And then the Alpha 300 has the new dynamic update, which changes depending on what your dog is doing. On point and treed alerts. And then with the Alpha 300, you have several map options as far as a topo map, bird's eye direct, and then you also have the subscription service option of the Garmin Outdoor Maps Plus. Here's a quick overview of the training functionality of the Alpha 300. The Alpha 300 training collar has customized buttons plus touchscreen controls. It has 18 levels of both continuous and momentary, plus it has the options of vibration and tone. Alpha 300 has the ability to do custom setups for each dog so that you can have stimulation levels based on the dog's needs. You can train up to 20 dogs using the Alpha 300. And that's a quick overview of the Alpha 300 training. The 300 handheld is very similar in look and feel to the 200 handheld. It's actually the exact same case, same size, same setup. But it has some new features that are much more user-friendly than the 200, and just a couple of things that the 200 missed out on that they have now included into the 300. New features on the Alpha 300 include 3 times the battery life on the handheld compared to previous models. The Alpha 300 has a clearer screen with better colors, makes it easier to see map detail. Alpha 300 has a better charging system using USB-C in place of micro USB. The Alpha 300 gives you the ability to update both the handheld and your collars via your home Wi-Fi. The Alpha 300 is also compatible with Garmin's subscription service Outdoor Maps Plus. The Alpha 300 also has a new and improved menu interface, which is easier to use. So one of the major changes in the Alpha 300 is handheld battery life. The Alpha 300 gets about 3 times the battery life that we have seen out of the previous models. Typically, you're going to find 55 hours of runtime with an Alpha 300 on full charge. This gives you the option of going multiple days without having to charge the handheld, compared to an Alpha 200, which typically is only going to last you a single day on a full charge. The next difference between the Alpha 300 and the 200 is the screen. It's the same size screen, but it is much clearer and shows much more detail, especially when you're looking at maps. The color detail on the Alpha 300 screen is also better compared to the Alpha 200 screen. Another improvement in the Alpha 300 is the charging system. Compared to the Alpha 200, which uses a micro USB charger, the 300 uses a USB-C charger, which in my opinion is a good bit more durable. That's just a better charging system overall. So another major change in the Alpha 300 is the ability to update both the handheld and collars via Wi-Fi. With the Alpha 200 system, you were able to update your handhelds via Wi-Fi, but you still had to update your collars via Garmin Express. With the Alpha 300, you have the ability to not only put your handheld on your Wi-Fi network, you can also put all of your collars on your Wi-Fi network, and then when you plug everything up to charge it, after a few minutes of being on the charger, it will go online, it will check for updates, and if there is a new update, it will automatically install it into your system. This is a major time saver. It also keeps you from having to check to see if there are updates available. The system's going to do it for you. It's very practical. Really big fans of this. It's going to help you avoid having issues with your GPS system. One of the new things that Garmin has for the Alpha 300 is the ability to use their subscription service, which is the Outdoor Maps Plus. This is a subscription service that gives you access to a whole bunch of maps that are going to be updated, and they're going to have a lot more detail. The other advantage of the Outdoor Maps Plus is that you're not limited to state regions as far as one of like the hunt view maps that we're using now. The hunt view maps are done by state, and that's a problem for folks that either hunt close to a border or they cross over a border when they're hunting. And so with the subscription service to the Outdoor Maps Plus, you're going to be able to download areas and not be restricted to just state by state like you are with the hunt view maps. Another major piece of the Alpha 300 is an app that's on the unit that's called Channel View. Just like all the other Alpha systems, you have a limited number of collars that you can track, and there is a set number of channels. If you are hunting in an area that has an enormous amount of activity, or if you're in a competition situation where there's an enormous amount of alpha collars being used, you know what kind of problems you have as far as interference between these collars. In a lot of hunting situations, this isn't going to be a problem, but especially in competition situations, this can be a problem. What Channel View allows you to do is it checks the airwave to see what channels are currently being used by other collars. You can then go in and set your collars to run on channels that are not being used. This was something before that you kind of had to do hit and miss. You would guess which channels were being used, or if you ran into a problem with a specific channel, you'd go in and change your collar to a unused channel, but you really didn't have a lot of control over it. So with Channel View, you can actually see what collars are being used and what channels they're on, and you can avoid those channels so that you don't have interference issues. The Alpha 300 is still part of the Garmin Alpha ecosystem. It is compatible with everything that Garmin makes for the track and train right now. It's also compatible with all the collars that have been made in the last few years, including the TT10, the TT15, the TT15X. It'll track the mini version of the TT15, also the mini version of the T5. It'll track the regular T5. It'll track the new T20. It'll also track the TT25. Alpha 300 will also track certain handhelds, including the Alpha 100, 200, 200i, and the Alpha 10. You also have the ability to track other 300 and 300i units with your Alpha 300. Let's talk about what's new in the new Alpha series of collars from Garmin. We have two collars. We have the T20, which is a track-only collar, and then we have the TT25, which is both a track and train collar. We have several new features in these new collars, the first one being dynamic update. So in previous generations of collars, we would have update rates that were a standard set time, so 2.5 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, depending on how long you wanted battery life to last. The new collars have those, plus they have an option of what's called a dynamic update rate. Dynamic update changes depending on what your dog is doing. And so in given opportunities to conserve battery life, the dynamic update rate will slow down how often it sends updates to your handheld when your dog is motionless. And what this does is it stretches out the battery life, giving you up to about 68 hours of battery life in a single charge. Next in the new features is multicolored running lights. On the T series of collars, we've had running lights that you could control from the handheld, which allowed you to turn on and turn off if your dogs were running, especially in low light conditions or at night. The new collars now give you 7 different color options so that you can identify dogs in the dark by changing the lights to match color straps or just to have them different from other people that are running their dogs, allowing you to identify your dogs in the dark. Also in the new collars is the ability to change the flex band. Previous generations had flex bands, which the flex band is the piece that goes up from the electronics to the GPS antenna. And the flex band contains wire that connects your GPS antenna to your electronics. While it's not terribly common, these can break. And what has happened in the past is that if you broke your flex band, you would no longer get a GPS signal, and to get it repaired, you typically had to send it in for a replacement because the flex bands were not user replaceable. These new collars fix that problem. There's 2 screws that attach the flex band. You can take a flex band off and you can replace it in the field if needed. And so there's just less opportunity for downtime with these new collars. So another improvement in the new collars is a multicolored status light. So the status light is what flashes in the center of the collar here when the collar's turned on. And now we have different colors depending on what the collar's doing. When your collar is searching for a GPS signal, the light's going to be yellow. When it has acquired a GPS signal, the light's going to be green. When you put the collar into pairing mode, the light will be blue. As the battery gets lower, the status light will change from green to red to indicate that you have a low battery situation. This makes it much easier to look at a collar and tell when it's ready to use. Another change in the new collars is that we no longer have a regular size and a mini size collars. The TT25 and TT20 collars come in one size. It is smaller than the regular collars, but slightly larger than the mini collars. But this collar is sized where it's going to fit most dogs extremely well. It is not so small that it's going to be a problem to put it on a large dog, yet it is not so big that it's going to be a problem for your smaller beagles. Another great advantage of this new series of collars is the ability to update these collars via Wi-Fi. If you're running a 300 handheld, you can sync these collars up to your home Wi-Fi system, and when you put them on the charger, they will go online, check to see if there are any updates for the collars, and automatically install the new updates. This is a great new feature. It's going to save you a lot of time. It also will keep you from having to wonder if there's a new update. It's going to automatically check, and it will take care of everything for you as far as updates are concerned. And that's a quick overview of the new T20, TT25 Alpha tracking collars. All right, let's talk about the handheld features of the Alpha 300. The Alpha 300 is a GPS track and train system. Alpha 300 will track up to 20 dogs or handhelds. You have two different ways to see the information on the screen. There's a compass screen, which will show your dog's direction and distance and what the dog is doing, whether it's treed or on point. We then have a map screen, which the map screen will show the trail that your dog has run. You have a couple of different options as far as whether or not that's a topo map or a satellite imagery map. The fastest update rate is 2.5 seconds, and then the Alpha 300 has the new dynamic update, which changes depending on what your dog is doing. On point and treed alerts, and then with the Alpha 300, you have several map options as far as a topo map, bird's eye direct, and then you also have the subscription service option of the Garmin Outdoor Maps Plus. Here's a quick overview of the training functionality of the Alpha 300. The Alpha 300 training collar has customized buttons, plus touchscreen controls. It has 18 levels of both continuous and momentary, plus it has the options of vibration and tone. The 300 has the ability to do custom setups for each dog so that you can have stimulation levels based on the dog's needs. You can train up to 20 dogs using the Alpha 300. And that's a quick overview of the Alpha 300 training. The Alpha 300, beyond being a track and train system, is also a full-featured GPS handheld system. You can use it for all sorts of GPS functionality outside of tracking and training. One of the major changes in the Alpha 300 is that the clarity and the brightness of the screen is substantially improved over the Alpha 200. It is a 3.5-inch touchscreen. The handheld is rubberized. The Alpha 300 handheld is waterproof IPX7, which basically means that it is waterproof for a period of time at a certain depth. The Alpha 300 has two antennas. It has your GPS antenna. It also has a removable antenna that is what's used for the communication between the collar and the handheld. Has 16 gigabytes of internal memory, which you can use that for downloading your map images. Also has a micro SD card slot. It's compatible with Garmin's HuntView maps. If you want to, if you prefer just to use HuntView maps, you can actually just load those into the micro SD card slot. The Alpha 300 uses the Garmin backbone system, which makes it compatible with all sorts of different accessories, both for carrying on your person and in your vehicle. The Alpha 300 handheld weighs 9.9 ounces. And that's an overview of the Alpha 300 handheld. All right, the Alpha 300 is also a training collar. The Alpha 300 has the ability to train up to 20 dogs. It is an 18-level continuous and momentary system with both tone and vibration. The 18 levels is a wide choice of stimulation levels that allows you to train the most hard-headed dog all the way down to the most sensitive dog. So a lot of versatility there as far as a training collar goes. With the Alpha 300, you have both button setup and you have touchscreen options with the e-collar functionality. You can customize it where you have multiple dogs. Your individual dog has either set levels or custom levels. You have side buttons on the Alpha 300, which allows you to raise and lower stimulation level without using the touchscreen. Substantially more versatile than the Alpha 100. The Alpha 300 allows you just an enormous amount of customization for the e-collar setup. You can train up to 20 dogs using the Alpha 300. It's just a wide, versatile e-collar setup. The Alpha 300 has the best features of the Tritronics e-collar functionality in it, and it just allows you to customize it so that you can train the dog the way you want to train your dog. The Alpha 300 is a GPS track and train system. Let's talk just a little bit about how this works. The Alpha handheld is a GPS receiver. It picks up information from GPS satellites and it triangulates its location. Your dog is then wearing a collar that is also a GPS receiver and it triangulates its position. And then the collar sends a radio signal back to the Alpha 300 handheld to tell the handheld, okay, this is where I am. That's called an update. The collar will update the handheld every 2.5 seconds, give the location to the handheld. So that way you can see every 2.5 seconds where your dog is located. That's called an update rate. You can control the update rate through your Garmin Alpha if you want to stretch that out. I prefer to have as much information as possible, so at 2.5 update rates what I set my collars on, but that is going to lower the battery life of your collar. So most people are going to run a 2.5 second update rate. The Alpha 300 also has something new, which is called a dynamic update rate. And what the dynamic update rate does is, depending on what your dog is doing, it controls how often it sends that information. The fastest is still going to be 2.5 seconds, but if for some reason, say your dog is stopped or you have taken the collar off the dog, but it's still turned on and it's not moving, that's going to the collar is then going to determine, okay, we don't have to send as much information because the collar hasn't moved, and so that's designed to save battery life. So with the new collars that have this dynamic update rate, we actually get a longer battery life than we do from a standard collar. The Alpha 300 will track up to 20 devices, so that's 20 collars or handhelds. You're able to control that from the unit as far as how many collars and handhelds you want to track at one time, but you can look at that many on the unit at one time. The way you view the information as far as what your dog's doing, there's two different options. There's a compass screen and then there's a map screen. You can move back and forth between those two. The compass screen is going to tell you the direction that the dog is from you, and it's going to tell you how far away he is from you. It'll also tell you what your dog is doing, whether or not that's running, or if it's a pointing dog, it will tell you if he's motionless and on point. Or if it's a hound that trees, you can set the collar where it will tell you he's running or he's treed. All right, with the Alpha 300, you set it as to whether or not you have a pointing dog or a treeing dog. And then when the dog goes on point, it's going to give you an alert. When the dog trees, it will give you an alert. And what that does is you can set it up a couple of different ways, but there's a sound option and a vibration option, or you can do both. And so that way, when your dog goes on point or is treed, you'll then get an alert on the handheld that tells you that. It'll also show on the compass screen and on the map, it changes the icon of the dog so that you can see whether or not he's running or whether or not he's treed or on point. With the compass screen, you have several different options as far as how you view that information. I have an actual compass screen. It's going to show lines that will point in the direction that your dog is in. And then we also have what's called a Pro View, which a Pro View gives you an option of individual dog with an arrow that points in the direction that your dog is from you, or you can look at multiple dogs on the screen at one time in the Pro View. With the maps, you're going to have a map screen that shows your dogs on the map. It'll show you in the middle as a triangle, and then it's going to show your dogs or your other handhelds, and you'll actually be able to see them on the map. You can also see a trail as far as where that dog has been. And so it'll have a line that will show the direction that your dog has run and where your dog currently is. With the map screen, you have several options. You can, with the unit, you get a topo active map, which the topo map is going to show elevations, it'll show roadways, and it'll show waterways. And it's pretty detailed as far as it shows small roads. It's a good topo map. Then you have the option of what's called Bird's Eye Direct. And Bird's Eye Direct gives you the ability to download bird's eye imagery, which bird's eye imagery is satellite imagery. You're able to download that via Wi-Fi to your handheld. And so you go in and you pick the areas that you want to see, and then you're able to download satellite imagery to the handheld. So the Topo Active Map and the Bird's Eye Direct, that's included with the purchase of the unit. There's no charge for those. The Alpha 300 also has the ability to use Garmin's Outdoor Maps Plus. That is a yearly subscription service that you buy direct through Garmin, and that gives you the ability to not only download satellite imagery, but it also gives you a lot of different kinds of maps. It's pretty in-depth. You can get plat maps, you can get public land maps. There's a lot of different features on the Outdoor Maps Plus. That's a new feature of the Alpha 300. You cannot do that with the 200 or the 100. The 300 is compatible with the Outdoor Maps Plus.